Welcome back, roomies, for another episode of the Engine Room Podcast. I'm here with Buga and Pablo. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about City's maybe crisis. We don't know yet. We're not sure about how much damage is going to be caused here with this City financial rules violation. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some of the fixtures from this week's Premier League matchups. We'll talk about Barcelona's 8-point gap over Real Madrid. And then we'll touch on some Champions League as well. So let's kick things off. Buga, why don't you say hello to our roomies?
Hello, everyone. ¿Cómo están? Welcome back to another episode of the Engine Room Podcast. I'm always happy to be here. And yeah, we have John wearing headphones for the very first time.
Let's go. Pablo, how are we doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm okay, thank you. Happy to be back as ever. It's always a very enjoyable hour of my week, so I'm happy to be on again. And I think we've actually got some good topics this week, especially in England, so I'm quite excited to get going.
We do, and we'll get to those. We just wasted, as Pablo pointed out, about a half an hour just talking a little bit, but then also a little bit of technical problems, some audio issues, hence the headphones. So thumbs up, thumbs down in the comments if we like the headphones. But outside of that, we're not here to talk about our audio problems. We're here to talk about some football. Pablo, kick us off. What is going on? Football. What's going on with Man City, dude? I saw the headlines, but I have not dove into all of the details around City's financial rules violation. Can't say I'm surprised, right? This is not a shocker. Everyone's been going, how are they able to spend this and spend that? Pablo, sort us out. What do you know?
I think Pablo is our designated Premier League specialist just because he lives in the UK.
Yes. You've been dubbed, Pablo.
Yes. No, well, I mean, I'm actually quite interested in these sorts of topics within football. I mean, I got really into the BARÇA finances over the summer and ended up doing an article on it and whatnot. So I do like this sort of stuff. And the City investigation is something that I'd want to get into more, actually, and maybe do a piece on or something. Look, from what we've heard is that they've had, over the course of about 10 years, over 100 breaches of financial fair play and regulations in the Premier League and in England. So what that means is, well, it can mean a whole breadth of things. City could be punished by points deduction. They could be removed from the league. Could be something less severe, like a transfer ban maybe. They could be docked points for this season and then for the next coming seasons. We don't know. So we'll have to see what the punishment is. And obviously an investigation will take place. And investigations have taken place in the past against City before and they were wiped clear. So City are good at evading this sort of thing. And what I will say about Man City is I think no matter what happens from this investigation, they're doing something dodgy. I think everyone knows that. Manchester City are not operating officially as a football club. They haven't been for years. I think the main issue City have got is they've set up fake sponsorship accounts that aren't actually legitimate. You go on their accounts and, you know, they have like no followers on Twitter. They're not real companies, but they claim we're getting X amount of cash from this sponsorship. They're not. That's just their way of then accounting and saying we're earning this much revenue, so we're allowed to spend this much. That's not happening. So that is, you know, essentially illegal. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot of at City. I'm sure there's hundreds, as we've seen more allegations against them. But my idea is that City, I mean, along with PSG too, have done all sorts in the last decade or 15 years in football. And I think it's no real surprise that this sort of thing will be uncovered. Look, let's see how harsh. I think this is the Premier League who have gone at them this time. So let's see how harsh this investigation is. Let's see what actually uncovers at Manchester City. And let's see what the ramifications of that are with Pep, the team, and everyone else at City. But for me, it's clear they've done some wrongdoings, and we've got to see if it's uncovered or not, because a lot of the time in football, these things are pointed out, and then nothing happens. So as of now, City under pressure, we've got to see how far it goes.
Yeah, I saw somebody speculating that they might get kicked out of the Premier League, and I was like, how's that win for anybody? You know? Buga, are folks overreacting? What do you think is going to come of this?
I think people tend to overreact because generally I think people tend to mix two things. I feel people mix what's happening with football clubs outside of the sport, of outside what happens in the stadium and what happens in the stadium. So for instance, is Manchester City, last week I said Manchester City had the best transfer window. Why? Because they were
breaking all the rules. I know. Yeah.
They were renewing their squad, John. Okay. They were renewing their squad. And since that is going on, that's, for instance, for me, that's operating good within the sporting sense of things. But operating outside of it, that's different. And people are going to tend to, for instance, hold accountable someone like Pep Guardiola to it. And I think people tend to overreact with things like this because generally we get to see only what happened on the field. So we get to see the signings, we get to see how much money is spent for those transfers. But like Pablo is saying, if you haven't really spent the time to investigate a little bit more about, let's say, how they do their accounting, how they're able to get this inflow of cash, then you don't really tend to understand the whole argument. So I'm just gonna say, people, if you know what you're talking about, talk about it. But if you don't, then don't. People just tend to hold accountable City, like,
Amen.
oh, look at all the transfer they have made. Okay, fine, but do we know how they are making their money? If you cannot give me let's say a thread on Twitter about that, then don't talk to me about it. Like, I want information, and I'm not gonna act like I know everything, since why I'm not giving let's say a concrete opinion. I'm letting Pablo do the job because he knows more about that than me.
No pressure, Pablo. No pressure at
No
all.
pressure, Pablo.
Yeah.
Cite your sources, Pablo.
That's my opinion. Like, use Harvard referencing.
Yeah. I think it is you could call it an excuse, you could call it an opportunity for folks to kind of start speculating to get those clickbait headlines, Manchester City ejected from Premier League, that kind of stuff. So I think we got to kind of cool our jets a little bit, wait for some details to come out. As Pablo said, stuff like this happens and then you get no repercussions whatsoever. They pay a fine, they move on, behavior doesn't change, so we'll see. We'll wait and see about this one. But what we do know, Pablo, you have other thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering. I wonder how severe the punishment will be if they're found guilty for this sort of thing. If we're talking about over 100 breaches, yeah, okay, I could see it being brushed over, but at the same time, I could see this, sort of the end for City. If they're found out about this sort of stuff and it's all uncovered as false, then that could be in big trouble for them. I agree with what you're saying, Borga, in terms of, I don't want to, just like kind of hound down City without knowing much, but I think it is evident that what they're doing is false. And I know I'm sat here in a Chelsea shirt, but Chelsea are a much bigger club than Manchester City, and Chelsea make a lot more revenue than Manchester City, and have been around as a top club for a lot longer than Manchester City. The fan base is a lot bigger too. So Manchester City, with the revenue they should be getting, just naturally, shouldn't be near, where they are. The reason they're so far up is, of course, the owners, and I think also the fake sponsorship. So I think they're going to be uncovered. I think the same will happen to Paris Saint-Germain. And you'd imagine if some of City's figures come out, that they could be in big trouble. So I'm quite intrigued to see how this goes. I almost hope it doesn't have an effect on this current season. But let's see how this turns, because it just could change everything about Manchester City. I think I saw something Pep said a few months ago. I think it was in May, and he was saying, if they've lied to me about nothing illegal going on here, then I'll walk away and I'll feel like betrayed.
Yeah, he said. I know. He said, "I'm walk away, and I won't be friends with them anymore." And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's wild what you're saying. Keep going.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, just quickly,
get him, Pablo.
I was saying. No. But like Pep, he stepped into the Abu Dhabi group at Manchester City. He can't seriously tell us with a straight face he thinks that City are just like naturally building a fantastic football club. Do you know what I mean? Like, he can't be like, what? We were doing like illegal business this whole time? Like, that's
Gee
how we
golly,
were spending
no
700
way.
million? Like, that's how we were spending that much money? What? Like, you do you know what I mean? Come on.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, you can't.
It could be a bit naive for him, right? I think what you mentioned about looking into some of the companies that they are supposedly getting sponsorships from, and how easy it is to look into their social media accounts and they don't have followers and this and that. In an age where that is so easy to fake, where you can pay for subscribers, for followers, for views, for whatever, how lazy is that? If that is what they're doing, all it takes is a couple more steps and you can, not have folks like us discovering the dirty details.
Well, this is it, John. Should be an easy investigation if that is the case.
Yeah.
I don't know if City's lawyers will be able to say, no, these are official companies and they'll have evidence or whatnot. But I've seen quite a few threads in the past by reputable journalists, good journalists who are in this sort of like investigative football field, who've pulled up screenshots, done some good, 6-tweet-long threads on these sponsorship companies that City have set up and that are bringing in such and such amount of revenue, but actually, aren't companies at all. So if that's found out, then I think, the evidence will be conclusive, and that'll be that, no?
Hopefully. I would, like you said, if you're sitting in Pep Guardiola's chair, you'd be a bit naive to not think something's going on, right? So if that is the case, if we're going to assume that something is going on, then I hope that it does get found out and then it stops, so we can have some actual financial fair play. And I say that as a Barcelona fan who is feeling like we're watched like a hawk, and we have clubs like City getting away with it. So let's level the playing ground a little bit.
I just think one more thing. If I'm not wrong, Pablo, I think this is more an issue between City and the Premier League. That this won't be an issue.
Yes.
I feel UEFA has nothing to do with this. Like, because at the end of the day, UEFA
Yes.
want Manchester City to be where they are, and I just don't know why would Premier League be why would the Premier League be kind of hurting themselves? I'm just thinking about what does the Premier League win from this? That's apart from the fair game and all of that. That's what I'm trying to understand. What do they win from this?
I don't know. Go on, John.
I think they do win a more fair competition. If you look back at the last decade, I know Liverpool has snuck in there, but it'll be Manchester City and at best one other club. You know, so if you look at it from that perspective, if you bring City back down to the rest of those clubs and you get a true 4, 5, 6 club championship battle, that's an exciting season. You don't want somebody clear favorites, clear champion in January or February. You don't want that. And you don't want it to be just a 1 or 2 team race. You want 3, 4 clubs going for a title.
I don't know. I feel that there are plenty of, if you look, there was this the typical like tweets that people put out, it's typical graphics that say like who would have won the Premier League in these seasons if Manchester City weren't there, and it's like only I think of 2 seasons maybe those teams were actually respectable. Like I feel the one where Liverpool lost by 1 point, and there was maybe you could make the debate for the Mourinho one for Manchester United, but they were not even that good. Like none of the other teams were actually proper teams. None of them reached, I don't know, the heights of European football like that Liverpool team did. Like they weren't the best teams in Europe. So I feel we tend to make this argument that City are the one, like you say, the one horse race. But the reality is not only their fault. I think it's more of the fault of the other teams as well. Like I feel that United, I feel Chelsea, I feel Spurs, I feel all of the other big 6, apart from Liverpool, have been just run to the ground in these latter years. Like just their planning, they had no roadmap. They were, I don't know. I just feel it's more of their fault actually than City's fault, because we've seen City being beaten by other teams in European competitions. So I don't know. Like I could say there are other teams out there that are able to beat Manchester City. Then why are not teams in the Premier League able to do that as well?
I think that's a fair point. I can't sit here and argue that Manchester United has been well run over the last decade. That's certainly not the case. So fair point, Bugo. I think you're onto something there. Any other points on City's financial situation before we get to some Premier League results?
No, let's leave it at that, because I think we don't have enough information yet.
Yeah, we don't have.
Maybe next week.
Yeah. Manchester City kicked out of Premier League. You heard it here on the Engine Room first. Okay. What we do know for sure is that Tottenham snuck 3 points away from Manchester City. And this is after Manchester City have an opportunity. We'll get to this match next with Arsenal dropping points. But let's focus on Tottenham City first. Is this a win for Tottenham or is this a loss for Man City? What do we think, boys?
You go, Pablo.
Paul, do you want to go first or me? Me?
You go. I'm pulling out the table.
Well, big error from Manchester City on Sunday against Tottenham.
Yeah.
Because Arsenal lost to Everton, which we'll get onto in a moment, almost feels irrelevant now, in my opinion. And this is City's chance. If City beat Spurs yesterday, they went 2 points behind Arsenal. Yes, with a game played more, but still, once you're 2 points on someone, you feel the pressure on your neck, breathing, and Arsenal will feel the pressure. They're not like Chelsea under Mourinho. Yep. They're Arsenal under Arteta. So if you come close to them, you can start hurting them. And then we can't forget, if they're that close, they've got, in the next weeks, is it not? Next weeks or months, they've got Arsenal to play twice. What a chance to turn the title around. And Pep rocked up to Tottenham, a stadium they've never scored at, by the way, which is an incredible stat. and
Really?
they were awful in my opinion.
They've
They've never scored at the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Wow.
It's the same game every time I watch it. It's a very boring game because I know exactly what's coming. It's like a bit of like a simulation sometimes because you know exactly what's coming. But I think it was a wrong selection from Pep. You know, they let Cancelo go, Rico Lewis at left back, looked out of position too much.
Yeah.
Defensively for me, you got just the team selection. Oh, I'm sorry, Ruben Diaz and Laporte on the bench. Please, please, trying to win a Premier League. Please spare me the bullshit, really. And then you've got that 4-4-2 in midfield as well, which does not work. Benching De Bruyne, then he took off Mahrez. Bernardo Silva was almost like too deep in a double pivot with Rodri. Just, I don't get it. It felt a bit like a self-sabotage to me, and I was watching it annoyed because I thought title race back on if City win, and they just gifted Spurs a win again. Credit to Spurs.
Credit to your boy.
Job, but they love that.
Your favorite. Harry Kane coming up in big
Harry
moments
Kane,
again.
Yeah, my man. Yeah. the winner, the serial winner, Harry Kane. Yeah, his trophy cabinet blow me out the water.
I bet you got more trophies than him.
Yeah. Well,
get him.
Well,
get him.
Maybe. if Mals will win the league at the end of the season, I'll have one more than Kane.
There we go. You can dedicate it to Harry Kane at the end of the season.
Yeah. But look, Spurs did their job. Like I say, they liked that fixture. They dug in and they got, I think, a deserved win, actually, because I think City just bottled it, threw it away. And now Arsenal will be laughing because there's not many more times they'll drop points, I don't think.
Yeah. I heard another stat at the end of the broadcast that this was the first match that Son played against City with Spurs at home that he didn't score.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's wild. So I didn't realize that Spurs were owning City like that.
They love it, yeah.
Puga, what's your takeaway from this? Title race over?
Dude, I feel like Paulo, City didn't take the chance to really close on Arsenal, but I feel they were I feel this game between Man City and the game between Arsenal and Everton were very similar in the sense that when a team that plays this philosophy, be it Guardiola's team, Arteta's team, or maybe even let's take Xavi's team from Barcelona, they face against a team like this that is making them hard to progress the ball, that is really keeping their line style and just going on the counter. And physically they're perhaps getting owned. They don't know how to adapt, and they just choke when there's substitutions. They choke with the strategy, they choke with their tactics, with their substitutions. And I feel you could just see the same thing between Arteta and Guardiola, in the sense that Guardiola here, he didn't know how to revert the situation. And like Pablo says, sometimes football is way more simple. I feel that I always go back, and Pablo is going to smile here, to that final in the Champions League. Like, football sometimes is just way more simple than you anticipate. Just simply put your best player in the right position. If there's someone fitter, put that player in. No need to overthink. Sometimes it's just 1 + 1 = 2. That's how it should be. And I feel that Guardiola, Arteta, these sort of managers, sometimes they take that a little bit too far. And that's what happened in this game. Like, I feel Tottenham knew exactly what they needed to do to win. And it's like Guardiola is thinking, okay, how can I beat Tottenham this time around? How can I beat Tottenham this time around? How can I beat Conte? How can I beat Kane, Son? And he tends to over-elaborate his plan. And sometimes it's just revert to what you know. Revert to know what you're good at. And I feel that's what cost them. In terms of the title race, I feel it's still not over. It was a good chance to close the gap. It's still not over, because I want to see how Arsenal revert their situation. And I guess with that, John, what's your thoughts on it, right? What's your thought on the City game?
There's no reason for Manchester City to ever walk away from a match having not scored. If they are playing 90 minutes of football, there should be goals scored for Manchester City. Haaland was marked out of this match the entire second half. He wasn't involved at all. I'd like to just give credit to Tottenham's defense, but I think Buga's onto it. That's more Pep self-inflicted, overthinking things, over-processing. Let these boys go out and play football. You're trying to manipulate players that are, if not out of position, out of tactical comfortability in terms of like, well, let's take a wing back and make them inverted and this and that. It works. It works until you come up against a club who just plays straightforward football, is just looking for that 1-0 victory. And doesn't fall for any of your sometimes nonsense. I say that with all respect to Pep Guardiola. He is a genius, but I think he overthought this one.
Yeah. I don't know, for one of the first times I looked at City's squad and I didn't think that's incredible. You know, in the past seasons where you've looked at it and you think, oh, you know, they've got like a front six on the bench that they can bring off.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the starting lineup. I didn't have the lineup, so I looked at the bench and I thought, Gundogan and De Bruyne, that's it.
Yeah.
And I just had to think to myself and I thought, damn, you know, there's no Sterling, no Jesus, not even Ferran Torres. I know Fono was injured, but there was no one there that I looked at and I thought, yeah, City have got options on the bench here, though. You know, they can switch this around. And that, for me, just struck me a bit as I thought, ooh, have they not oversold a bit? Have they left themselves a little bit light? They haven't got the two squads of 11 like they did before, maybe. And I just thought to myself for a minute there, you know, have they got that one wrong? And I don't know about this 4-4-2 formation that he lined up with either, by the way. I don't think it worked. I thought Alvarez had a very good game. Haaland was non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it worked.
I think it's more Haaland or Alvarez rather than Haaland and Alvarez. That's my personal opinion on that situation, because could they work together? Yes, they can. But in this formation, or what City are aimed to do when they have most of the possession of the ball, I think it's one or. And in this game, 100% is Alvarez. When you know you can just blast the team when they're going to come at you, go with Haaland. Haaland needs a little bit more of spaces to be a threat, or perhaps you need to have other players be able to create chance constantly. Julian Alvarez is someone that I feel he can create a chance for himself a little bit more and also for others. Haaland is more of a one, I'm not going to say one trick pony, but like he has one style of play that if you can really take advantage of it, he's going to be deadly at it. And in a game like this, perhaps that wasn't, I feel, my opinion. And taking on what Pablo said about, we talked about how City doesn't have that squad of 11 of let's say 22 players. That's true. That's true. I feel they, even though I said they had a good transfer window, whatnot, this is a squad that ultimately they should still be competing for the Premier League, but they're gonna be lacking a little bit more to win a league like this. I feel that in a league you need either a starting 11 that is playing like amazing, like Arsenal, week in and week out, or at least some players that you're able to rotate whenever the times be. And I feel that, for instance, that's what happening with Barcelona. We may get onto them later, but maybe what Pep was trying to look at, or maybe what he was trying to achieve, I'm just putting it out there, is for the Champions League, you do need that solid 11, right? That solid 11 that for 7 games you can put out and try and win. Mm-hmm. When rotations come into place, I feel that's where, for Manchester City, they have struggled a bit. They've been sort of seeing the consequences of being just way too greedy, or of gluttony. You know, that's a word, right? When you eat too much, I think that's what City's getting. Like, they are seeing the consequence in the Champions League of that, because they got so many variables, so many different players that they can go and select. And maybe that's where Pep tried to kind of cut the fat out. Yeah. And maybe we can see how that could change in the Champions League. I don't know. I'm just trying to put that as a silver lining.
Yeah. We'll get to some Champions League talk here in a little bit. We'll maybe circle back to that one. Let's turn the conversation to Arsenal, though. Losing to Everton at home. This is Sean Dyche's first match for Everton. Are we surprised by this result? Pablo, what's your take on this?
I am a little bit surprised, because this season with Arsenal, I expect them to essentially win every game. I did think when Dyche came in that, you know, it was going to be one of those bogey games where I think anyone in the top 6 thinks, oh God, please not the 12:30 kickoff on Dyche's first game at a new club, because it's a nightmare. But the reason I thought Arsenal were going to win is because I thought it was going to be Arsenal saying, yeah, this is, you know, one of those nightmare games that we've come at the wrong time, but we're going to be the Premier League champions, so we like nick a 1-0 with a penalty or something. Do you know what I mean? Sure. And it wasn't, and they lost. So I thought, ooh, let's see. Now over to you, City. But I think City have fluffed their chance. So issue for Arsenal, I think, yeah, but I just think they'll be fine, because I saw that as a huge chance for City. And City, to me, at the moment, this could change. Don't look like they're ready to give Arsenal a proper kicking. Like we've said in previous pods, we need City, if we want Arsenal not to win the league, City need to win both games against Arsenal. They also need to produce a pretty incredible run that they've gone in past seasons to take the title off Liverpool, for example. And this squad doesn't look like it's doing it. So I think Arsenal, at the moment, will just hobble across the line. You know, they've in every title race, Chelsea have had this in the titles. I remember when I was younger that we used to win. We had a game that we lost, and I thought, that hurts a bit. But what you've got to do then is stay calm and just keep the distance, and then you win the next game. And I think the fact that Arsenal lost it and then City went and lost again just feels like a big step for Arsenal, a massive one.
Yeah,
I love this game.
I think Booga, this kind of is proving your point. Sean Dyche comes in. He doesn't have a lot of time to implement his style of football. So he picks a starting 11. He tells them, go out and do what you know what to do. And he gets the results against Arteta, who has the opportunity to manipulate his team, play full Arteta-style football, and you get these results. So, Booga, talk to us about why you love this so much.
Like, even though I would like Arsenal to win the league, and with that, as a Chelsea fan, Paulo, what do you prefer? Like, do you prefer Arsenal to win the league or like City to win it again?
It's not even a question. City.
And what's the team you hate the most? Is it Arsenal? Or is it like Tottenham?
I think Tottenham winning the league because they haven't won a trophy in so long will be bad. Arsenal is the next worst though. That's bad as well.
I don't know. I feel
and then Man U, then Liverpool, then City. Yeah. City the best.
Well, with this, like what I was saying is like sometimes football is more simple, like John said. Like I'm looking at the stats here, and it's like look at they had 4 shots on target, Everton, to Arsenal's 3. They had 29 possession. They had 252 passes to 639 from Arsenal. They had 13 fouls to 8, 4 yellow cards to 1, 3 offsides, 7 corners to 5 of Arsenal. So it's like I don't even need to open sofa score or whatnot because I know Everton got closer to the box more than Arsenal did. And that's what I like from Sean Dyche. Like Paulo said, he was the right appointment. I think he was the right appointment. He knows exactly how to get a team out of the relegation. So perhaps not to win, to get up to European spots, but he knows how to put a starting 11 out there, and it worked. It worked. Arsenal didn't know how to change, how to break them down. Arteta, I feel once again, he finally reached a game where he couldn't simply outgun the opposition. And now they are seeing perhaps the problems with it, right? The problems of not having that X factor or something different that they can try out. And I feel that's what Arteta needs to be sort of studying. He needs to brew something up for the next remaining fixtures in the Premier League, because teams, if they see this game, they can see, okay, I can do this perhaps to start figuring Arsenal out. And you always need to change something. You always need to keep evolving if you want to stay at the top. And I feel that's what Arteta needs to be looking for in this game. He changed Odegaard. He changed Thomas. He changed Martinelli. He brought in Trossard, Jorginho, Vieira. He tried to be as attacking as possible, and still he couldn't break the duck. So there's something out there that he needs to try and change.
So I was trying to pull up a stat, and I can't find it. But I'm kind of curious how often a manager comes in taking over a club that's in a relegation battle, how often they win their first match. Because it seems like it happens quite often. Yeah. And I don't know how much of that is maybe sometimes psychological for the players, just somebody coming in. It can be a fresh start. It can be a new voice. It can be added motivation to prove yourself for this new manager. Some of it is, I think, again, Booga's point of simple football gets it done. But I'm curious on that stat. But here's the question I want to get your guys' thoughts on. Is it a dream job for a EPL manager who has that experience to come into a club who is underperforming and the only expectation is don't get relegated? Is Sean Dyche in a dream position right now if you're a Premier League manager?
In a way, yes, because there's no expectation, like you say. But and Dyche knows how good he is as well. We have to give Dyche credit, because I think Dyche maybe gets put in this category with like Roy Hodgson and Sam Allardyce in England here, people we labelled as like Brexit football managers. But Dyche is such a category above that. He's a proper coach. I mean, already we saw at Everton what he's getting out of these, like a group of players who looked useless, just a week ago. He's so good at it. And he actually, by the way, Dyche got Burnley to Europe, by the way. They're in the Championship now. Mm-hmm. He is incredible, Dyche. He really deserves a lot of credit. And I think people think him as just sort of like, 4-4-2 and lump it long to, 6'4" white strikers. But actually, I think now at Everton he's going to have technical players in there. He's going to have foreign players, and I think he's going to be able to make the most of it. Back to your question, John. Yeah, I think Dyche would think that he'd come into the Everton job. It's a big job. Like I said, they've got players who he knows he can utilise, and he would have thought, I can really make the most of this. And ultimately, I think he'd feel that he can keep this group up, and that's going to look very good on his CV and his resume. So he would have been licking his lips at the job. And then there are some managers who I think come in and they see a side who they know are getting relegated, and they almost think, well, what's the point of me being here? So I don't know. It's kind of like a poison chalice in a way.
Look, to move the perfect segue for us talking about Leeds United, because I know John might want to talk about that.
Yeah.
It's a far better position to be right now an Everton manager than to take out Leeds United. Because Everton, in a way, they were expected to be relegated. Everyone's was talking shit about this team, and a team like Leeds United, it's like, okay, we could go down. It could have been all in our minds, but they never really were thinking they could be down. They could go down. I feel that's the difference. That's the difference of it all. Everton were already in these relegation positions last season, so it's this sort of, like Paolo said, it's sort of not having expectations, but in a way, it's already as bad as it can be, that their only way is up. And I feel that's beneficial for Everton in a situation like this.
Yeah, no, I think you got a fair point, because it kind of, listen, expectations matter, folks. All right, I say this very often in other walks of my life, but disappointment, frustration, anger, upset, it comes when your expectations are not in an alignment with reality, right? So some folks are not willing to change their expectations, and so they keep changing the reality, meaning they keep changing the manager in this case. You're not getting me the results that I want. Give me somebody else. Yeah. Sometimes it is the manager, sometimes it's not. I'll say for Jesse Marsch, I'm struggling with this one. I really am. I'm being mindful of my American bias, because I loved having an American coach at a Premier League club. I'll say that flat out. And I love that Aronson and Adams and now McKennie have come over to Leeds. So I still got my Leeds kit. All right, it's not going anywhere. I've still got this for match days, but I'm a little bit disappointed. And I say that because, well, let me back up. Let me give the context, okay? Credit to Leeds for being ambitious. Credit to Leeds for not accepting mediocrity or a lack of progress, okay? So credit to Leeds for saying that. With that said, I think what this shows is that they never really saw Jesse Marsch as the long-term solution. He came in around this time last year, February of last year. Yep. Leeds were in a very similar position in terms of points and position in the table. He kept them in the league, and now we're 6 months halfway through this campaign. Same position. Now, my arguments for why this was maybe a little bit early are that they just got Weston McKennie, who I think is a box-to-box midfielder that it's going to really be the one that covers up some of the gaps that they had in that midfield. They've now got Sinisterra back, who's a huge player on the attack for Leeds. Bamford has been missing time here and there. He's now back and healthy. They do have Rodrigo out, but I would have liked to see Jesse Marsch with Sinisterra, with Bamford, with McKennie now, because when you look at the table, they're 1 or 2 results away from being mid-table. And I think that's where you would expect Leeds to be for this campaign. Yep. So I think maybe a little bit too high expectations, a little bit too impatient. And I would have liked to see Jesse Marsch see out this season, but I can also understand Leeds not being okay with just treading water and potentially being in a relegation battle. So I get it. Not happy about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it for Leeds, isn't it? I think they felt they've got a good squad, some good players who they probably feel are Champions League level. You look at McKennie or Adams or Rodrigo up front, for example, and they probably think we want to be pushing on here. And I think the fact that, like you say, John, when Marsch came in this time last year, they were 17th or 16th, and now they're 17th again. So they feel no progress, and obviously that's why they've made the decision. But you're right, when you're near the bottom, you're 2 wins away from then finishing 13th. And I think if Leeds finished 13th, they'd be pretty damn happy. And that's something Marsch maybe could have achieved, like you said, if he was allowed time for the rest of the season. So it's a strange one. And the question will be, how much better is the new guy that comes in? I don't know. We've got to wait and see. But I think we know why they've made the call, and that's because they felt that they weren't going anywhere despite having quite a good group of players.
Leeds' next manager, Zinedine Zidane.
Champions League one?
Yeah. Booga, what are your thoughts on this?
Muted.
For me, it makes no sense because it's like,
Ooh.
for me, it's like, why would you sack the manager now? Like, sack him before the window. Like, it's literally 1 week after the window has closed.
Why not do that in the beginning of January? That makes
do
a lot
that
of
at the
sense.
beginning of January when you were 16th, and then have the manager come in and be able to get the tools that he needs if you really want him. And if you want to keep the manager, then keep him, invest like you did getting McKennie and other players in, and then you also have players coming in now back from injury, like you say, Sinistierra, and it's like, sack him now when you're already invested sort of under his command. I don't get it. It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. I wouldn't be surprised if the next manager for Leeds would be someone like a Pochettino or something like that. I honestly don't think that would be too wild, because I feel they have the money to be able to invest in a manager, because the squad, I think, for me, is good enough. I think it's good enough to be like 10th, but it depends on the manager now. I thought Jesse Marsch could have been that guy. We talked about it before, that maybe Marsch was a little bit too naive. And I think that's what happened with US managers. We talked about Berhalter in the World Cup as well. And maybe that's what costing them a bit. But at the end of the day, why do it now? I don't see why would you sack him after the window. Makes no sense.
Well, what in terms of names for the new job, Fabrizio said that West Brom coach Carlos Corberan is someone they've contacted. So I don't think it'll be a big name, basically. I don't think it'll be a Poch, It sounds like they'll go for someone young, project, someone like maybe from the Eredivisie, for example, maybe the Belgian league, you know what I mean? Championship, for example, they've looked here rather than a big name.
But why? Why would you do?
Yeah, I'm with Booga. It doesn't make sense.
It's the same thing as getting Jesse Marsch in. Like, they're both young managers.
Right, yeah, that is the thing. If you're gonna go for a young manager, you got to be patient and let that manager develop.
Yeah, I know.
I really would love to be a fly in the wall for situations like this, because I really want to hear the thinking, because my thinking for me is straightforward. Like, for me, I would not, what would I need to know to take this decision? That's what I want to know. That's what I want.
I wonder how much of this is influenced, because I still try to factor in that although we're focused on the football, these clubs are an organization that run like a business. So I wonder if Leeds got what they needed in terms of American exposure, getting some of that market. They just signed McKennie, so they've got that covered. So we, from a marketing standpoint, don't need that U.S. representation as a manager. He hasn't really moved the needle at all for us, so let's go ahead and move on from him, bring in somebody else. There's still Aronson, Adams, and McKennie, which is arguably the heart of U.S. men's national team right now. So they don't lose out from a marketing standpoint, and now it starts to make a little bit of sense.
Yeah, I mean, these things happen. We saw at Chelsea, last hour of the window, Bowley and Egbali put in quite a lot of work to get Tuchel Aubameyang, someone who Tuchel trusts. He denied him of Ronaldo the whole window, and within a week, Aubameyang had played an hour of football and Tuchel was gone. So that happens. And I'm sure Marsch was a big part of bringing McKennie to the club. I'm sure he would have been on the phone all the time saying, no, this is a good move for you. I know you're at Juventus. Come to a relegation battle club because I'm here. We've got a good project here. So that happens. And I think you're right, John. I think the club just decide, no, like these players, they are not being signed just for the manager. They're signed, from a club perspective too. So we're not just going to keep the manager around because we've signed this player or whatnot, If he's not getting the results, he can go. Someone else will come in and the players are still going to be the same.
Yeah. But sometimes you think maybe we all know the owners takes the decisions, but they do we know Leeds have a sporting director or something like? Because sometimes
they Victor Orta, because quite famous one.
Look at that Pablo just dropping names.
Yeah, like amazing. I'm honestly impressed.
EPL representative.
Like that's what I mean. Like sometimes maybe it's just the owner like looking at his finances and being like, okay, no, cut. We need something. We need a change. We need a change. And he takes the decision and he doesn't even know the thing about football. So I'm not sure who Leeds United's owner is, but it wouldn't surprise me things like that. That's how, for instance, I feel. Um, I don't. You maybe Pablo knows the name of the owner that passed away from Leicester City. Like he was investing in the sport, and that's what it gave. That's what kind of pushed Leicester further forward. And sometimes we need stuff like that, or clubs do need a sort of combination between someone who understands the sport and the people that follow him underneath, like in the hierarchy, and that works. And I feel that that's when you get the best representation out
there. Yeah, not everybody can have a Joan Laporta and his squad, unfortunately. All right, let's maybe quickly jump back up towards the top of the table. I know words. Manchester United did get a win. It's kind of brushed over a little bit because we're focused on Arsenal. We're focused on City. Is there any chance for Manchester United in a title race? Should we even be asking that question, or should we just appreciate the progress that Ten Hag is making?
I don't even know why this is a topic.
Ooh. Okay. Well, I got to say, I was points wise. By the way, I don't think Man United can or will win the league. I think, in fact, if they get close to it, like they did a few weeks ago, I think they will lose. Like when they drew to Palace and then lost to Arsenal because they got too close. I think that will happen. However, points wise and fixture wise, it's looking very good for Man U. You know, Arsenal and City have still got hard games coming up. United don't really have that many hard games, and United have been excellent at beating the lower down clubs so far this season. They've dispatched them really comfortably, home and away. I think they've got Leeds twice in a row now. You're looking at, again, 6 more points there. Arsenal and City will probably drop points in that time. So points-wise, they are there, but I don't think they're going to win the league.
Yeah, I'm tempted to triple or quadruple down on my earlier statements of Manchester United. They're making it hard on me though. Here's the thing. I do think Arsenal are about to drop points. I will hold steady on that projection. That I think everyone is assuming that Brentford at home is 3 points, and I think that's wrong. Okay, I am doubling down on that opinion. Then Arsenal have Man City, and then a tough away trip to Aston Villa. So I think Arsenal are going to stumble.
Yeah,
I want Man United to do it. I'm rooting for them. I really am. But right out of the gates, let's circle back to what we said earlier. Relegation battle clubs who bring in a new manager, how often do they get points, if not a victory in their first match? Man United going up against Leeds 2 days from now. That could be a stumbling block, just based off of what we were discussing earlier. If Man United come in, take care of business against Leeds, then I think we 2-3 weeks from now can revisit this conversation and see where we're at. Because I think the title will be decided in these next, let's see, 1, 2, 3. On Saturday, February 18th, I think we're going to know who the title is going to by the end of that day.
Do we think United can beat Barcelona in the Europa League?
Yep.
Like, because we don't. I think that would be a test for both clubs. Like, because it would be a test for Manchester United to see where they at, and for Barcelona to see where they are at. Because Barcelona right now, like people are saying, and I guess this is where we could talk a little bit about La Liga. We could talk a little bit about the UCL because I'm gonna drop my twisted take just about now. I had a twisted take kind of in the back of my mind, and I was thinking like maybe I'm just a fan, but I feel that Barcelona with Napoli and with I think with Napoli are the most informed teams right now in the world. With Bayern Munich, like drawing all the games maybe since the window shut. So I don't know. I want to see that. I want to see what Barcelona. It's unfortunate that Barcelona are not in the UCL because I would like to see where they at in terms of not to win the Champions League, but just to see where they at in terms of facing these other European teams, and maybe they could be favorites. Like maybe it's not unthinkable. Now they have to face Manchester United, and I feel Manchester United are thinking the very same thing. Like next season or this time around against Barcelona, we have to win a game like this to show the rest of Europe how much we have improved.
Yeah, I do think Barcelona are Barcelona I think are probably the best team in Europe right now. Actually, from what I've seen, they look very strong. We look incredibly strong right now, Barcelona. I do think Barcelona are going to struggle against Man U, though. I really do.
I'm worried about Rashford. I'm worried about Rashford on the counterattack. But I say that having a lot of faith in Barcelona's defense right now. I think Xavi has gotten it figured out. It's Christensen, it's Araujo, it's Koundé, it's either Balde or Alba on that left side. Either one works. Yeah. And Ter Stegen having a career season right now. So I'm with you on that. It makes me nervous that Dembele is injured. It makes me nervous that Busquets might be out for a bit. I haven't followed up. He was injured yesterday in Sevilla. I haven't followed up. I don't know if you guys know any early reports of how long he's looking at.
2 weeks.
They're saying at least he'll miss the first leg, at least. Probably the second, I think.
Yeah, so that right off the bat throws a wrench in things. But optimistically, Frankie de Jong was absolutely amazing in the pivot against Sevilla. Absolutely incredible.
Ibiza.
I can't disagree. Barcelona, very hot club right now, but it's not a gimme match by any means. Like I am hesitantly actually thinking United go through in this. And I say that because in this season, I think Europa League means more to United than it does to Barcelona. Because Barcelona can still win La Liga, can still win Copa del Rey, can still win Supercopa, and it's a great season for us. Man United, not so much. The league's out. Are they still in FA Cup or Carabao Cup?
They are on the Carabao Cup final.
Okay, so Carabao Cup, right? So they got that, and then they got Europa League. So for them to look back and say this was a good season, those two trophies right there, that's what does it for them. So I think it means more to Manchester United. And if it comes down to prioritizing rotating the squad, again, with Dembele and maybe Busquets not available, I think Man United go for a stronger lineup, and Barcelona will focus on the Liga if it comes down to that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have faith. I have faith in rotations. I feel Kessie in the game that we just saw against Sevilla, he was really good.
Yeah.
Rafinha,
that assist of Jordi Alba was nasty.
Yeah, it was nasty. I think
you saw the best of Kessie. I don't mean to interrupt your point, but that example right there, I think is the best of Kessie. You saw the physicality, the composure, and a clever pass to set up Jordi Alba, all in one piece there.
Mm-hmm. I think that was it. I feel. Then we also talk about Rafinha. I think Rafinha was active. I think he was. The one thing that Rafinha will always give you is like, I'm going to demonstrate you. I'm going to act. So viewers, watch. Pablo, stop looking at your phone. Whenever Rafinha loses like a ball, he goes like, okay, I'm gonna look. He always does that. You know what I mean? Like
I do.
And I feel that's what the sort of like energy or thrill or I don't know what it is that runs through his veins or whatnot. But it's like he wants to be in this club, and just by doing that, it demonstrates you like what it means for him. And he's not always going to have the impact that a Dembele can, but just having a player like that for me is such a breath of fresh air. Like, it's just, I'm fine because you're going to be playing with 11 players. You know, that's what I mean? Like, Memphis Depay, for instance, he had the quality. He's far better than Rafinha, in my opinion. But it's like, just some days you're going to be playing with 10 players. You know, you just know. With Rafinha, we're going to be playing with 11, and I like that. So
I think Barca got three of those: Rafinha, Gavi, and Araujo, who are all bulldogs when they lose the ball. Like out of possession, I love this sort of player. Like that's how I try and play football now at like 120 miles an hour, a bit like you're on like cocaine or something. Yeah. I love that sort of player now. Where they're just mad. Like you see, like Gavi and Araujo, like they tackle with their head every game like 4 times. Like, it's bizarre to watch, but it's brilliant. Mm-hmm. And Rafinha's like that. He's like that as well.
Yeah, and that's what I mean with rotations. We mentioned it earlier in the episode. I feel that sometimes when you just have like 14 players, 15 players, you're right. And I feel Barcelona has that. I feel Barcelona has like 14, 15 players. Like the main 11, and you have Jordi Alba, Rafinha, Kessie, and Ferran Torres. And that's it. Like you don't need more.
No, I mean, that's fair. I think that is the perfect the perfect balance because you can't have too many. You see a Man City, sometimes that option gets overwhelming. I want to drop some stats on you. This is quoting. I'm gonna quote the source here. This is thanks to Barça Buzz on Twitter. Put this together, but shared that Rafinha's first 14 matches for Barcelona, 1 goal, 1 assist. Rafinha's last 15 matches for Barcelona, 5 goals, 7 assists. He now has the most goals and assists in all competitions in 2023 among La Liga players, most assists for Barcelona this season, and out of 29 games, he's only started in 16 of them. We are finally getting the Rafinha that we wanted.
From Leeds United, and now they're going to get relegated.
I know. I'm so torn.
But that's good. That's good. I like that. That's a good start. And also, I feel like Lewandowski, the one thing that's a little bit, I'm like a little bit, let's say, nervous about is I feel he kind of has slowed down. No, not as a player. I mean, just in this season at this moment. Right now, he's like not at the peak. You know, maybe this formation doesn't suit him as best, playing with 4 midfielders. And that's what I wanted to ask you with you guys. Now that Barcelona are 8 points clear in the La Liga, now that perhaps they can have a little bit of breathing room to shift. Like, for instance, in the game, what's the game before Manchester United for Barcelona? Is it
Villarreal away?
Villarreal, okay. Do you think that that's where Xavi will perhaps play? What do you think is Xavi's now preferred way to replace Busquets as well? Is it having Kessie there or including someone of Ansu Fati or Ferran Torres?
Kessie, I think.
Yeah, I think Kessie coming in gives us the least amount of changes, right? Because Kessie just goes to where Frankie was playing. Frankie goes down to the pivot, and we keep everything else the same. My concern is that we then have very limited options off the bench in the midfield, and you have to bring on a winger or a midfielder at that point.
Yeah.
We could. Is Sergio Roberto back from injury yet?
Yeah.
I think
he is, right? He's been on the bench. Might be Sergio Roberto's time to come back into the midfield off the bench.
Yeah.
Right? I think that might be the solution. So, yeah, I don't think Xavi trusts Ansu right now. I don't think Xavi's really putting any sort of faith in Ansu Fati.
Or Ferran Torres.
Or Ferran Torres, yeah. So you're seeing that. They're getting cameo appearances right now at best. So, to Buga's question, is this an opportunity for one of those players to maybe get a little bit of playing time now that Barcelona have a bit of breathing room in La Liga? I would say yes, but I would say it's for Ferran Torres to give Lewandowski a break, and Ferran Torres gets some time in that number 9 position. He can kiss the right wing goodbye. Dembele and Rafinha, they own that right wing. Ferran Torres has he's not even going to get a chance.
Look, this is why I don't want a right winger for coming for Barcelona. I feel Rafinha and Dembele are perfect. Like,
we're good. Yeah. We're good.
I don't want to touch that position.
Nope.
In 5 years, I really don't, because I feel Dembele has a higher ceiling than Rafinha. I feel Dembele wins you games. Rafinha can as well, but sometimes Dembele will be like a 4, a 3. But Rafinha will always be a 6. Yeah. And that's a perfect balance. That's a perfect balance, because if Dembele isn't working, you can just bring the player who is. And that's I just love that. And I feel that's a position we shouldn't touch. But I don't want, like, I would be very sad if we see these debates of like, oh, one of Dembele, Rafinha has to leave or whatnot. No. Keep Rafinha, keep Dembele, just leave it as it is. Even for that's the reason why I feel right now, and this is I feel this is why we've seen many transfer rumors about Ansu Fati. I feel the player who's most likely or to leave or doesn't have a space is more Ansu Fati than someone like Ferran Torres. I feel that has changed recently, and I feel sick about it.
Well, how much of that is Ansu Fati and his poor performances in the number 9 position a couple weeks ago? I think he had two matches while Lewandowski was out where Ansu Fati was tried out in the number 9 position, and it was miserable. It was bad. So if you're looking at your options there, I think you give Ferran Torres his chance, because arguably the best 11 right now. Well, no, because I like the 4 in the midfield. I was going to say, with Dembele healthy, you could, again, go back to Rafinha on the right, Dembele on the left, and what you do is you let Rafinha run, and when he needs a break, swap the wings, let Dembele run and run and run, and then swap back. And it does balance you more on that right-hand side. But when whoever's on the left-hand side, that's their time to catch their breath, take a little break, just pinch them inside a little bit and have Balde or Jordi Alba sprinting up that left-hand side. So I think that gives you Dembele and Rafinha attacking from the right, fresh legs. It gives whoever's defending them quite a challenge, having to switch back and forth between Dembele and Rafinha. I think that's what we might see once everybody's fit and healthy, but who knows? I'm with Bugat. Both Rafinha and Dembele stay. We got to work out Dembele's contract long term. He's got 1 season left at the end of this one, but no reason to put either of them on the transfer market. I think it does come down to Ansu or Ferran.
Yeah.
Do you think they both stay next season? Do you think Barcelona have both Ansu and Ferran Torres on the roster?
No.
Oh.
I would keep him. Honestly, I wouldn't make any changes to this squad. I wouldn't sell players. Maybe I wouldn't sell. I feel even someone like Marcos Alonso, I would keep him. And I would maybe just sell Jordi Alba, even though it pains me. But that's the only player I would be like, yeah, I'm okay with it. And then I would bring in someone like Benjamin Pavard, and I would bring in nothing else. I don't think that this team needs nothing. Like maybe a backup left back or something like that. But I don't think they don't need. I don't think this team needs more. I really don't.
Yeah,
I agree. But I'll tell you a fact is that Alemany will be busy.
Yeah.
But did you see that
there'll be changes in this
Did you see that Alemany runs out of contract this season?
Jesus Christ.
It's like he runs out of contract this season and Real Madrid wants him. That's what I read.
No.
That's what I read. And
the people will not let that happen.
that'll be like outside the Camp Nou when we lost Messi.
Yeah, really. But I think we should talk quickly about Real Madrid before we move into maybe the Champions League, because they lost against Mallorca. Yeah. Was it a Muriqi goal or was it a Nacho Fernandez goal?
They gave it as Nacho goal in the end, I believe.
But what I wanted to say is that this Real Madrid team, people are going to be saying, oh, they're playing worse, but I feel genuinely this Real Madrid team plays the same as they did last season, but the difference is that Benzema and Courtois were outstanding. I think that's the reality. I feel that's what I look. I see this team and I look like
absolutely.
I see this team is the same. It's only Benzema and Courtois were winning those games, and Vinicius Junior was better because kind of like Benzema unlocks Vinicius. So it's like that's the only reason I feel it's different. And I'm not saying it's a bad way to play the game, but I'm just not surprised. And I'm not surprised when Real Madrid do good, because if there's a team that do route one football, it's Real Madrid. Like literally pass the ball to the best player and that's it. They win because of their best players. And that's not a bad way to play football, but that's kind of what they do. And right now they don't have their best players.
I agree. I don't think Real Madrid need like an over analysis. I really don't. I don't think they're in crisis, and I never think they're the best team in the world either, because I just think that they play on moments and they're the best team in the world at doing that. That's why I think they'll be back again. I think they'll still make a title race out of this, because like if they won 10 games in a row now, I wouldn't bat an eyelid. Like they can just do that. They can turn it on, and they ultimately can turn it off. I think you're right, Bulgar, though, because the football isn't so good, because there's not that structure in place. It means that they can slip up in points. Just the fact is they usually don't, because they've got those moments players that carry them over the line game after game. But we're seeing this season that isn't happening. For example, now when Courtois and Benzema was also injured, was he not, yesterday against Mallorca? Then, well, there you go, drop points. So that's what Real Madrid are.
I think they're done with La Liga. I think 8 points is too much. I think Barcelona are flying too high. But I think Real Madrid win Champions League. I think they do. I think this is the last run for Benzema, for Modric, and I think they're going to do enough. I think the Champions League is up for grabs. I think it's the only trophy Real Madrid really care about this year. I'm not saying that they never care about La Liga, but we've talked about how the priority is on European glory. So I think they're just going to let La Liga do what happens. They focus on Champions League, and they're my favorites. If I was going to place a future bet on any of these clubs, I would go against my heart and go for Real Madrid. That's what my head says. Is that Real Madrid are going to
at their 11? You look at their 11 and like if they're all fit, Courtois, Carvajal, Militao, you go Rudiger, Alaba, then Tchouaméni, Modric, Kroos, Valverde, Vinicius, Benzema. That's the best team in the world, or the second best team in the world. Like, it's still amazing, but the problem is when you don't have those players, and it's like if they could put that 11 for the rest of the Champions League games, I can say yeah, they're definitely up there. I still feel, because my prediction so far has been on point, I still feel that PSG can do it, because if Messi just reignites that I just finished football, I just won football attitude, I feel that's still my prediction.
That's hard to get up for, though. Pablo, what do you think? Is Messi gonna catch that fire again, rekindle that flame? Because for me, like, now that we're a little bit outside of the World Cup, now that the momentum of that is totally gone, I'm trying to imagine what Messi's head is like right now. I gotta think he's got 1 foot in a pool somewhere already, just waiting for the summer.
He went to like Norway to holidays during the season, like during the game of between Brest and I don't know, Nantes, let's say. He went to a holiday with his family, and like he posted like 5 pictures and then came back, won, scored a goal. It's like
no big deal, just Messi being Messi. Deal.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I feel that attitude is positive.
Go ahead, Pablo.
No, I mean, Messi does what he wants, really, but he'll always be able to turn up on match day. I always find with Messi that he's not going to be someone who mucks about. I think, and he'll be fine. But I don't think PSG are winning the Champions League. In my opinion, they're not the ones this season. But at the same time, there is not one team left in the Champions League that I think will win it. Like right now,
no, you're not getting away that easy, Pablo. You got to put somebody on the line.
No,
I'm going to Real Madrid.
Real Madrid.
Buga's going PSG. You're going to Real Madrid with me?
Yeah.
All right.
They have to go one.
Come to the dark side.
They're the most reliable. Yeah. I have to go to the dark side. They're most reliable, I think, in this sort of year where I can't see anyone who can pull it out of the bag. You know, they are Mr. Pull it out of the bag. So let's go for them.
Yeah, that's true. They're Mr. Pull it out of the bag.
Who's your dark horse? Who's
Napoli.
your dark horse?
I still feel Napoli's really good.
Napoli. Let's see, because they keep winning at quite a relentless rate. I just worry whether they'll be able to translate it into Europe or not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go.
I have another team that I want to put out.
How many teams are you gonna pick, Buga?
8.
I'm picking 8.
I'm just gonna say. I also think that maybe Inter Milan will
get out of here.
No. I'm not to win it, but I feel they're a team that right now, when they discuss like in a boardroom, all of their eggs are in the basket of the UCL right now. I feel
fair.
I feel having the groups that they had with Barcelona, being able to beat them and like that, they're gonna be like, let's just put all of our eggs in that basket. Let's just do it, because in the Serie A, I don't think they're gonna win Serie A, and it's like they are not gonna be as bad to finish out of the UCL spots. Let's just put all of our eggs in that basket and let's see what happens. Because on paper, genuinely, they're not a bad team.
All right, I poo-pooed it at first, but you've won me over. It's not that wild. I wouldn't, certainly not a twisted take. It's not that outlandish. No. My dark horse, my number 2, is actually going to be in direct conflict with Buga here, and I'm going to say Bayern for the same reasons. They've done it before. They've got enough of some fresh faces around to have that energy, that extra commitment, but they've also got that leadership, that experience that's been there, that's lifted the trophies, and it's hard to count out Bayern in Europe. It's really hard to count them out. I would say they're my. It's hard to even say that they're a dark horse, but that would be my not so bright. Maybe you could call it a dark horse.
Yeah, well, to be fair, when you consider that most people are probably saying they're going to go out in the round of 16 to PSG,
Booga.
Yeah, well, then you could call them a dark horse. We have to remember though, Kylian Mbappe's out for that first leg.
I wanted to ask, do you remember the season that Liverpool had like 1,000 injuries at center back? The other season that they were doing bad.
Was this when they were doing bad? I don't know. Was this when they were playing like
Fabinho in center back and Henderson in center back?
They finished third that season.
But in the Champions League, where did they finish?
They got knocked out by Real Madrid in the quarterfinals.
I was an encyclopedia on this episode.
I was gonna say like maybe Liverpool. I don't know. I also thought.
No, actually, no, not Liverpool.
Do you think Chelsea?
They're too
okay.
bad.
I was thinking about
Pablo won't allow it.
No. Chelsea. What about Chelsea, Pablo? Like, do you think Chelsea will do similar to like Inter? Of like, let's just put all of our eggs in this basket, because like
that's interesting.
Their squad is still like pretty good, and and they even have to let go of Barry. Why did they let? Why Chile out of your UCL? I don't get that. I would have maybe would have dropped. I don't know what I would have. I would have dropped Madueke. Is Madueke even in your UCL squad or no?
No, I don't think he is. It's Felix,
Mudryk.
it's Felix, Mudryk, and Enzo.
I don't know who I would have dropped. I would have dropped.
Felix, I think, but they.
No, that would have been way. I would have dropped Cucurella.
No. I think the fact is we can only register 3 new.
Oh, you can only register 3 new.
That's the rules, yeah. So a few have to miss out.
Okay.
That makes sense.
What about Chelsea?
What about Chelsea? I like the look
Dortmund?
at Chelsea, Pablo. What do you think?
They can beat Dortmund.
Do you think? Oh God, I don't know.
Gio Reyna right now is on fire though. Back to U.S. men's national team. I don't know if you guys have been watching any of that. You guys probably don't get Gio Reyna on your feed too often, but I think he's scored some golazos,
Yep.
and I think he's scored in every match that he's appeared in since the World Cup. Yeah, I think so.
Since the incident.
Yeah, since the incident. Yeah, he's trying to put that behind him apparently, but it is a little bit ironic that the U.S. struggling for goals, leaving out Gio Reyna. Now he comes out of the World Cup and he's just like, here's the goals that you've been waiting for. So
yes,
we'll leave that alone. But Dortmund, not a team to look past, but that is interesting to me because Chelsea essentially have a brand new squad to start Champions League with.
Yeah. I just don't get the same feeling. This time last year, I had a feeling that Chelsea were incredibly hard to beat under Thomas Tuchel already, even after about 3 or 4 games.
Yeah,
I don't have that feeling at the moment with Potter's Chelsea. Unfortunately, I don't see us as a Champions League winning team right now. Even though I get the sort of vibe that you're saying in terms of like doing bad domestically and then like turn up in Europe could happen.
Yeah.
But I just don't feel it at the moment. I might in a few weeks, but I don't right now. I don't think Chelsea are going to be a contender at all.
All right, well, we'll see. We're going to do a full analysis, full predictions. We'll go match by match. We'll go into all the details of Champions League in next week's episode, so make sure you tune back in for that one. But any final thoughts on Champions League or otherwise before we wrap it up for today, fellas?
No.
All right, good stuff then. Like I said, next week we're on our regular schedule, so we'll be talking Champions League football and more. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us, roomies, and we will see you on next week's episode.
Bye-bye.
Peace.